Only 10% of senior leaders admit to using AI. So who exactly is teaching everyone else? Nobody. Increasingly, we are seeing that we are in a global peer learning moment. But at the org-wide level, we're still figuring out what that means for how we develop roles and responsibilities. On today's show, you're going to hear a conversation I had with Kamaria Scott at Transform. You might remember Kamaria. She's a friend of the show, and she's going to talk about why managers are about to become a bottleneck. Though your organization may have rolled out AI with a well-funded strategy and now you're tracking adoption, the answer to the question of who controls people's day-to-day work is becoming less clear. Is it HR, business line leaders, operations teams? Who are the people who decide whether your employees get slack time to experiment or if every minute of the day needs to be billable? The tools are evolving fast. Agents can now do what LLMs couldn't. And the people who are learning the most amidst this shift aren't learning it from leaders. They're learning from each other, from other people who do what they do. And despite this, we see skill atrophy. Not just communication skills eroding because people use AI to write emails. I'm talking about the ability to judge quality, to look at AI output and know whether it's good. There's a rising concern that Gen X and millennials might become the last generations with deep expertise, because the next generations are outsourcing so much work, they're not getting foundational skills to evaluate what they're producing. So today we're going to cover why the passion project model is the adoption strategy you're missing, the human interface problem, becoming a pass-through for AI outputs instead of an expert, what performance management looks like when agents do half of the work, why organizations failed to cultivate learning agility before this moment, and how to make sure people develop expertise to judge AI output quality. I'm David Rice. This is People Managing People, and if you've been expecting adoption without creating capacity for experimentation, this conversation shows you why your strategy is stalling at the manager level. Over to us. All right. Well, we're here at Transform. I'm with Kamaria Scott, who you know from previous podcast episodes. We're here at Transform. It's not a surprise that we're here. We knew we were coming, but this is a surprise that we're sitting down for this conversation. But I wanted to ask you, like, what are you excited to look at this week? And like, what are you hearing so far in terms that you're finding interesting?
Yeah, well, I think anybody that knows me knows that managers are my passion and my jam, and their experience is really important to me. So specifically this week, I am listening for all the conversations that intersect the manager experience and AI. So how are we helping them to roll out AI with their teams and helping with what really is a large scale change in most organizations?
So what have you been to so far? And like, what did you get out of it?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, so yesterday, and I posted this on LinkedIn, my favorite thing that I went to was, I think it was called like the AI game show senior.
Oh, I didn't make it.
CHROs, compete to transform or something like that. And what I took away from it, what I really love, was that one of the panelists said, the original question was like, how many companies you can have a strategy?
Yeah.
And one of the panelists said, it doesn't really matter if you have a strategy. And even if you're funding the strategy, if you're not allowing people enough time in their general work to experiment with these tools, to figure out how to use them, you're failing at adoption. And so as she was talking about some of the things that it required, the ability to have an idea and see if AI can help you with it. All of that to me was saying, yes, everything she described happens at the team level.
Yeah.
It's where the managers are. But my question during that session was, this is great. We're sitting here looking at CHROs talk about these things, but a lot of times HR does not control people's day-to-day work. Business line does, your operations leaders. So my question was, how are you all influencing or having conversations with the senior business line leaders to allow for the time that people need for experimentation of these tools that we're expecting them to adopt?
One of the things I think I found interesting yesterday, and I'm starting to notice this more and more in conversations that I'm having, is that there's more of a building narrative that like get out of the way a little bit and like let them teach each other. Because actually who you are going to learn the most useful things from are the other people on your team that do what you do. Like you don't need to be shown, and it's never going to stick that way anyways.
No.
And we're seeing that happen like all the time now.
No, I mean, I think people are experimenting with their real lives, but what they do need is capacity, right? These tools are changing literally by the hour, and something that couldn't do something yesterday can do it today. And even, I mean, personally, but by the time I run back and forth between like, what's Claude doing? What's perplexity doing? You could spend all day going back and forth, but you also have real work to do, other things.
Yeah.
So the best thing they can do, in my opinion, is to give people what I always call like the slack time to be able to experiment, play. One of the things I've always advocated for on my team is people having passion projects. So way before AI was even a thing, I would always say, if you're on my team, I'm giving you 10% of your time for a passion project. My 2 rules were, 1, I'm not checking up on you because this is for you.
Yeah.
And 2, it has to benefit both you and the company. So you can't be a bread baker on my time, right? And I think this is a perfect opportunity for managers to have these passion projects for their teams to say, listen, find something that you do every day and figure out how AI can help you do it better. And 8 weeks from now, let's do a show and tell together.
Yeah.
I don't care if you work together in teams, find something that benefits you and benefits me. So if building your ADD butterfly taming task list thing helps you at home and at work, I am here for it. Go do it.
Well, I attended a session yesterday. It was, really centered on skills first strategies, but they were talking about, if you want to do that though, like you've got to put the skills sort of front and center. And like, what is front and center for an employee? It's not the CEO talking, it's the people that they're experiencing their work with.
Yes.
And so that's really like why I think we're hearing more and more of this like peer-led AI experimentation and education.
Well, I think that senior leaders who themselves are not implementing and adopting cannot teach people.
Yeah.
And I find in a lot of times the gaps that I have seen, even when we first started rolling out AI and I'm listening to senior leaders talk, I was almost like, oh, they're not using it.
Yeah.
You could almost tell.
I think only 10% actually admit that they use it.
Right. Exactly my point. And so if you're not really leading at the top, then how are you teaching people skills down? And I think that what's so amazing is that we are in the middle of this revolution where there's really not a lot of people who have so much experience that they can teach someone else, right? We're all learning and growing together.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, Lovable had an event for International Women's Day, and there were all these Lovable She Builds events. And we all sort of convened together and got with our laptops and we were vibe coding things that were in our heads. And so I, have been working on this sort of manager support dashboard and sitting there with other people. We were sitting there going back and forth. And how did you do that? Oh, how did you connected an API? Well, tell me, how did you do that? Yeah. And we were peer learning. But I think we're in this almost global event of peer learning.
Wow.
So it's a really exciting time. And if people can think about how do you harness that at work so that you're having these sort of peer learning opportunities, that can be an amazing part of your adoption strategy.
A key part of it too, and it is, I don't know if you have advice for our listeners on this, but you've got to be able to create the psychological space.
Yes.
Where, because like the world right now, to put it lightly, is overwhelming, right? Things are a bit chaotic out there, and people are bringing that to work.
Yes.
And then you're telling them, well, you've got to experiment. And it's like, can I just do my job? I think that's how a lot of people feel. It's like, can I just go to work, do the job and go home and like try to live a life that feels sane?
Yeah.
And you've got to account for all of that. But I think you've got to create the space where the experimentation feels natural. It feels like it's part of the work. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm asking you to do anything extra. And I don't need you to reinvent the wheel, but I want you to rethink what's possible about your role.
Yeah.
That's a hard question to ask, especially if you don't actually embody that yourself as a manager or a leader.
I think that maybe if we rephrase that to the world is kind of chaotic. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
How can you learn to use this in a way that it's going to make life easier for you or make work easier for you?
Yeah.
So, we talked before we started this about I have this idea and I was like, I want to write a white paper. I hate writing white papers.
Yeah.
Right? I was able to use AI to like crank it out, get it done. And I was like, fantastic. And so if there are things that I don't enjoy doing that I'm not good at, are those things that I could use AI support for that then can give me more time to do the things I do like with my job. Like I love peopling. I want to be with people. I want to, talk. I want to train. I want to coach. I don't necessarily love the administrative things. So if I can figure out how to have AI help me with the administrative things, that's amazing, right? So even I'll tell you, one of the things I was so excited about was in prepping to come to this conference, I wanted to meet with certain people. And I wanted to send outreach messages, but I wanted them to be thoughtful and not just like some canned generic, let's compare notes nonsense. And so I was able to use both Claude and Perplexity to do deep research on the people I wanted to meet. And it generated customized output of the notes that I sent to people.
Yeah.
And so what would have probably taken me weeks, I was able to do in a couple days.
Wow.
And get back to my peopling. And it made me happy. And I would have great conversations when I got here. So I would say, yes, the world is chaotic, but think about how can you find a way for this to take some of that chaos away so you can spend more time doing the things you want to do.
Well, I would echo that. Like, I've been trying to encourage our teams internally to, like, use it for, okay, you don't need it to write for you because you were hired as a writer.
Yes, you already write really well. I don't write that well.
But like, if you don't, like, well, what do you need it for? Like for me, for example, one of the things I sometimes struggle with is sort of finding that editorial through line that runs through everything and helping me create a message that's more cohesive.
Yes.
And it's great at this little strategy piece, right? So it strengthens this weakness of mine. And I think that, like, I love the opportunity behind that.
Yes.
And like, you used it to plan this trip. And I kind of did the same thing where I was like, here's the things I'm interested in looking at.
Yes.
Can you help me tie this back to the core concepts that we've been driving anyways?
Yes.
And it does a great job of like helping me realize, here's where this possible connection is. You can naturally link and these two concepts together and build off of it. And so like, I think it's about all of us just sort of thinking about like, what's the way that's going to benefit me the most? Because it's not going to benefit me as a writer that much.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but I love
And is that really valuable is the other question.
It's not. So first of all, so interestingly enough, in the session I went to, they said they think human writing is actually going to become a commodity, like a really highly valued skill, because we're all tired of M dashes. And I've been thinking about, here's what stopped me in my tracks. And,
You've
all
been
those,
on LinkedIn recently,
oh
right?
my goodness. If one more person has been stopped in their tracks.
Or just one more person who goes on and on about how much they hate this content.
So I feel like that's actually going to be a highly valued skill going forward. But I do think, like, when you think about what am I not good at and how do I use it to bridge the gap on things I'm not great at, I am absolutely a butterfly of a human being. So when I start a project, I start in the middle. And so even being like, help me organize the approach to this.
Can we automate the beginning?
Yeah, seriously,
so I can jump in the middle.
Like, get me started. Right. And so I think if we can think about it that way, it can help people be better versions of themselves at work.
Yeah.
And I do think that's why I love the idea, though, of the passion project, because it's not you saying, find something for the company that you want to, and force me into it. It's what are you naturally interested in?
Yeah.
So when I pre AI and I had my team doing them, I remember we had an LMS and the LMS had workspaces.
Yeah.
And so someone on my team for her passion project was like, she wanted to create a workspace builder because she wanted to test her coding skills. And I was like, what does that even mean? But okay, sure. And what she did was she built this thing that we could give to our internal clients. So instead of us having to individually build their workspaces, she was able to deploy the workspace builder. They could build them for themselves and we just kind of coach them, right? Yeah. I was like, that is amazing. And she was so excited because she was able to, again, test her coding skills, figure out what she wanted to do. I was able to be like, look at this wonderful thing that she's done. And it helped our clients. So we can think about, I think, AI adoption in that way, where like, do you have an idea? Has it, like, what interests you? What do you like? Yeah. How do we create a win-win for people where they're doing something that's going to make them happy with it and the business?
Personally incentivizing it, right? And like part of like one of the drums I've been trying to bang a little bit lately is like, I was at this conference a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to all these HR leaders. They're kind of griping about the fact that people are writing emails with it.
Yes.
Right. And I get it. Like,
they sure are.
They sure are. And they're getting annoyed by, the lack of like development that's happening in people's communication skills and the fact that like their colleagues can all tell and they're sort of checking out on what the person is saying. And my question was, well, did you tell them not to do that? Like, at any point, did you guide them and say, like, as a business, we don't believe that this is a valuable use of this technology?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a responsibility to the business. And also, I'm like, you could go further if you wanted and say to society, like, is it worth consuming the amount of energy that a small business consumes to write your emails? Like, is that really?
Is it really a good use? Yeah.
So we have to ask ourselves that question. Like, what is the usage that we want people to use to have? And then start getting that into like how we talk about it and into our culture.
Yeah.
You have a comp philosophy that goes beyond just like pay bands, right? Well, why don't you have an AI philosophy that goes beyond just don't use ChatGPT or don't use this or that or don't do this, that, and the other thing? Like a policy tells you what you can't do. What's going to tell people what's possible?
Yeah. So I think for me, people are still in the experimentation phase. So I think they're hesitant. Outside of like, please don't, give it our trade secrets. I think most people are kind of just figuring out, like letting people find their way with it.
Yeah.
The challenge though, to what you're saying for me is not so much the writing of the emails as much as it is the skill atrophy of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so I had a moment where I wrote an email and I said to myself, oh my gosh, I wrote an email because I wrote it myself. Yeah. And it was such a weird moment to be like, girl, you've been writing emails all these years. Why? But I had gotten into the habit of being like, hey, I want to write an email to so-and-so. I needed to say da-da-da-da-da, whatever.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cut, paste, right? And I was like, well, why? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
When you could have just written the email. And I was like, have you lost your ability to write or to get your thoughts written down? And I do think, bringing that back to why I think it's so important to think about like the managers in all of this. It's a manager who's going to catch that email and go, did you write that email? Okay, was it a good email? Because if you're terrible, and I'll tell you why I do love it for email writing. Again, being the ADD butterfly that I am, my eyes do not see typos. I don't see missing words. I don't see missing letters. I see none of those things. So I used to actually have real anxiety about sending out important emails because inevitably there was going to be an error in it. And so I prefer verbal communication. And I even have a LinkedIn post I wrote many years ago about like how my ADD, it makes it really hard for me to write things because I get anxiety about them being, in error. So when I have an AI write, I verbally dictate it and I have AI write it, then I'm like, I don't have to worry about whether or not there's a typo, whether or not, and I go back and I tell it, I didn't want it to say that. But even though it seems like it's a silly use case, for me, it's actually really good because it's bridging my gap.
I'm guilty of like framing it as if it's silly, right? Because as we're sitting there talking about it, it does sound silly. But then like I think about myself and my professional journey and how I've developed over the years. And there was a time where like I was probably too reactive. And so like I would write emails that I would look back on and go, maybe I should have said that. And so like, I would have loved to have had an AI thought partner that could be like, you should tone this down a bit, David.
Or here's what I thought I heard what you said.
This is going to get lost. Really this is what you mean, you know? And so like, it would have been good to have that. But the reward for me over the years has been to learn to not be reactive, to make that part of my professional journey. Yes. And to learn to communicate in better ways, more effectively, right? Mm-hmm. And that's largely what that crowd is complaining about. It's like, well, they're not learning how to, the critical thinking is not there, and then they're not learning how to communicate in this way. And so it goes back to like, it sounds kind of like antagonistic, the way I'm framing it.
No.
But maybe we have to antagonize ourselves just a little bit.
So I think here's what I'm hearing. Because honestly, and I experienced this on my own current team with people that I lead. And I have a colleague that we were having this conversation about a very simple thing, the development of a newsletter, right? And you can use a newsletter as another way to say email, right? Yeah. But, and knowing that AI was used to produce it. And so in fact, check, there were words on the page. So technically you did it, but it was terrible, right? And for whatever reason, it didn't do what it needed to do. And I think what happens is people forget that behind everything that you produce is a thought process. There's a reason or rationale for almost every decision. Even if I were to say like, and I'll take it out of a newsletter and put it in my own language and AI and instructional design, there is a reason, a rationale, there is a thought process between everything that I create, every learning objective, every activity. I've really thought it through. And so if I then delegate that to AI and say, build me a course on X, Y, and Z, first and foremost, the learning objectives 9 times out of 10 say things like learn, or something that's we all know is not a good learning objective. The examples may be shallow. It doesn't quite, it does something, but it doesn't have all the nuance that I would put in it.
Right.
And so if I'm looking at someone and I can tell that they used AI to generate those learning objectives or those activities, I have to now have a conversation with them where I say, okay, so it spit this out. You tell me, is this good?
Yeah.
Is it not good? Why?
Yeah.
Is this something, if we put this in front of clients, are they going to have the outcome that we want them to have from this? So what is the standard? So I don't mind if you use AI for your email, but did it convey the right message?
Right.
Did it move people to action? Did it give what we needed to give? Like, is the nuance there? So I think it's really up to people leaders and organizations to enable people leaders to think about the coaching and the support that's needed so that people aren't just giving us AI and they're not thinking it through anymore.
The way I kind of put it in my mind was like, you don't want to be a human interface of this thing's outputs.
Oh, I like that.
You know what I mean? Like, you want it to be a thing that accentuates your expertise and makes it more articulate.
Yes.
That's what you want out of it.
Yes.
So but that again gets back to having a conversation with folks and saying, like, I need to feel Jessica come through.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's Jessica? Yeah.
Where are you? Because I can see this chat. All of this makes sense. There's a reason to say all of this.
Yes.
But I don't feel your experience, your reasoning. I'm not understanding why you sent me this. I understand what it says, but I don't understand why you sent it.
And you're letting it be the head chef. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Where like I am paying for your expertise, your experience. But I think the larger problem that we are going to encounter is that as we give AI more and more of our work to do, people are losing their expertise. They're losing the ability to look at the output and judge it. So like right now, and I would say, you know, for us, you know, Gen X, millennials, we're probably the last generation that's going to have deep expertise in our work. Because when we talk about skills right now, right, the skills are, well, do you know how to, you know, are you a good prompt engineer?
Yeah.
Well, being a good prompt engineer is not the same thing as are you a good instructional designer, right? And so are we now outsourcing so much of the work that like people are not getting those foundational skills that are going to help them look at the output and say that's actually not quality output.
Yeah.
When I use it, right, for marketing or I use it for other things, I have no idea whether or not what it's giving me is right because it's so confident that it is right that I have no idea. So how are you making sure that people on your team have the right experiences so that they can judge whether or not the output is right? So they need to write some manual emails so that when they are looking at the email, they can go, oh, I would never say that. Or that's not a well-written email. Yes, words are on the page. A newsletter was produced, but my experience tells me this is good because of this, and this is not good because of that. And that's where I come back in and I either re-prompt it or I write the sections that need to be written or I do whatever I need to do to it. But making sure that people are having the right developmental experiences to be able to judge the outputs is super important.
Absolutely. Well, and if we're going to talk about skills so much, because that's a big focus here, right? Everybody's wanting to hire based on skills, develop people for the skills that we go on and on and on about skills, but then we're immediately putting in this place something that's going to erode most of them. So.
We've been doing that for years.
Yeah,
okay?
This is true.
I think this is where organizational culture comes into play because I was on a learning team many years ago when we first started. We bought a product. I won't call it out. But one of the features was like, it'll suggest to you what you need to learn. And a large part of learning is for you yourself to identify the gap. And so just because the technology can do something doesn't mean you should have it to do it. Because if you stop thinking and identifying your gaps and you're only taking it because a platform was like, hey, your role is blah, 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 blah. You should take this course. You're really not identifying the gap and closing it yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think as we have tried to sort of automate more things and stop people from doing things, we are seeing skill erosion. And part of the challenge, going back to sort of not giving people slack time to learn, is that we have not cultivated learning agility in people. Mm-hmm. So as somebody who has led learning functions, I have constantly fought the battle of, well, we've decided that people should have, 40 hours of learning time, and the business line going, not with my money you won't, not with my billable hours you won't. And so you really have not developed a true learning culture, and now we're in this large scale learning moment, and people don't have learning agility. That's part of the problem.
You know what? I'm just going to applaud that one. Like, mic drop.
What else do you say?
Right. Well, so what else are you excited for here? What's your next conversation?
Oh my gosh, what am I excited for? I mean, more of the same, honestly. I mean, clearly AI is the theme of the day, no matter where you are. The intersection of people leaders is always going to be where my heart is. So I'm excited about that. I mean, I'm sure there's great conversations about benefits and stuff like that, but...
The folks at Novin are upset that you're like, no, I'm just kidding.
I'm sure there's great conversations about benefits happening. But I think this is the one that I'm really looking forward to all day, and to see the different ways. So there's, I think, another session on, the foundations, because I think in order to lead change, managers still need the foundations.
Yeah.
They still need to know how to coach. They still need to know how to develop. As a matter of fact, those foundations are going to become even more important.
Yeah.
I think there's one about our manager is going to be your bottleneck. You just talked all about that. So manager enablement. At the end of the day, every single strategy goes through people leaders. And so I'm tuned into all the conversations to hear how companies are thinking about supporting and enabling their people leaders, because it's where the strategy is going to fall apart, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to, there's a lot of chat around like, all right, now we're having AI review all the resumes, and that's turned into a disaster.
Yes.
Now they're using AI on what are we going to start looking at? Like, there's a lot of like, what is the data that we need to look at? And then like, how are we assessing people? Because there's a lot of resentment out in the job market right now. People are annoyed with the fact that you're making them do these assessments and you're not paying them for it.
Yes.
They're going through 7-8 rounds of interviews and then getting ghosted. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of things going on right now that have to be addressed. And so I am interested in a little bit in the recruiting conversation and how that's going to evolve. And yeah, me, just AI.
Everything. You know what else I'm actually really interested in? I'm really interested in performance management with AI. So I went to an event called AI Salon in Tampa a few months ago. And one of the topics of conversation was like, well, what does seniority mean now if you have democratized information? What does performance look like if people themselves aren't doing the work, or agents are doing half the work? Like, how are you now going to evaluate my performance as a person for work I'm not even doing fully myself anymore? So I'm really interested to see how people are approaching that topic, because when it comes time to give you your performance review next year, am I going to simply ask you, did you learn AI, and be like excelling? Or am I going to look at the total output of what you did? What does good performance look like now in this new environment? That's one thing I'm very excited to see and look for sessions on.
Yeah, I've been on a little bit of a performance management with AI kick lately, because there's a lot of... So I just found it interesting that folks think that the outputs are more effective, like of the performance review. Like, they actually think it's more valuable. The feedback is better. But if they find out that it's AI, they don't like it. They don't trust it, which is interesting. Like, that's a bit of an older study, but like, I was having a chat with Kate O'Neill, who we met at Running Remote last year from Opry.
Yes.
And she was like, just don't ever lie about it.
Yes.
You have to be transparent and just tell them, like, look, we're going to use this. And I really think like the way that she's approached it with her tool, where it spits out something that the manager and the person discuss, rather than it being, the single source of truth. It's like, do you agree with what this thing's saying? and then you have a conversation around it. I think that is valuable.
It absolutely is valuable. I think because it's a data point, right? And if you think about it, that's how performance management should be, and it should have always been.
Yeah.
It is a conversation that creates alignment and shared understanding around what your year was like.
Yeah.
And quite often what ends up happening is that at the end of the year, you say, I was a 5, and I go, nope, you were a 3. And now we are in disagreement with one another.
Yeah.
And so something that says, hey, this is sort of a neutral place for us to start. This is what the data in our conversation says. It's a starting place for a conversation. And what I always tell people, anytime you're using something that is an assessment, the assessment is not the end goal. The assessment is the conversation starter. And so even in performance management, it's an assessment of your performance. It's supposed to be a conversation starter, and then you come to the middle. Yeah. I've had many conversations with people where it was sort of like, I was a 5, and they're like, you were a 3. And I was like, excuse you. And so we have to now bring our data to the table. But I think now we have a stronger data set, and that's what it's given us, is a stronger data set. And it's a little bit less subjective. So now we can have a different conversation that's not just, well, David's opinion of Kamaria this year versus Kamaria's opinion. Yeah. We kind of have this bridge in the middle.
Yeah, I know I've had a few myself where I was like, look, I only put 4 because I didn't want to have a big ego, okay? Well, there's lots to look forward to for both of us. I'm excited, and it's good to see you here as always.
As always.
All right, well, we're going to wrap there for this episode. Join us on the next one. And as always, if you haven't done so, make sure you're signing up for the newsletter and following us on YouTube and all the social media so you get all this right into your feed.